Welcome, everyone, to the Deep Dive. Today, we are jumping right into the really dynamic world of biotechnology and pharmaceutical services outsourcing.
A fascinating area, definitely.
Absolutely. And our mission today, for you, is to really dig into the key strategic insights, maybe some surprising facts, too, from a recent market forecast. We're looking specifically at how it's expected to perform right up to 2033. Think of it as your shortcut, to getting a handle on a really crucial, fast-moving sector.
Yeah, and it is fast-moving.
All the insights we're sharing today, just so you know, come from excerpts of Biopharma Outsourcing, Global Market Growth Forecast to 2033 by Cognitive Market Research.
And it's a good place to start because, well, understanding these trends, it's not just about the numbers, is it? It's really key to grasping, the future of medicine itself.
Right.
How new treatments actually get developed and launched. And, the whole structure of the global pharma industry is shifting. This isn't just small growth. It's pointing to a pretty fundamental strategic change.
Okay, so let's unpack that, starting with the big global picture.
Right.
The overall market for biopharma services outsourcing, it's seeing really significant expansion. The source puts the 2021 revenue at just over $40 billion.
40.445 billion, to be precise.
Exactly. But here's where it gets interesting. It's projected to hit over $51 billion by 2025.
A big jump in just a few years.
And then it basically doubles its 2021 size, shooting up to, wow, $81.569 billion by 2033.
Impressive.
That represents a pretty strong compound annual growth rate, the CAGR, of 6.02% over that whole period.
And what's fascinating here, as the report highlights, is that this surge isn't random at all.
No.
It's really driven by this increasing need for, cost-efficient but also highly specialized outsourcing services. That goes for both biotech and the big pharma companies.
So they need outside help more.
Exactly. It's becoming a strategic necessity. Think about accessing, say, AI for drug discovery, or managing these incredibly complex global clinical trials, or even specialized manufacturing for things like cell and gene therapies.
Right. Very specialized stuff.
Outsourcing lets companies, big and small, really focus on what they do best, their core work, while tapping into external expertise. It kind of democratizes innovation and, speeds things up.
That's super helpful context. Okay, so if we zoom in a bit, this growth, it isn't the same everywhere, right? Different regions have different stories.
Definitely different dynamics.
Let's start with Asia Pacific. It really looks like it's becoming a major powerhouse. The report shows remarkable growth there. It's set to more than double, from about $14.7 billion in 2021.
$14.63 billion.
Yes, to over $31.4 billion by 2033. That's a strong CAGR too, 6.656%.
And within APAC, China is absolutely leading the pack. It's expected to nearly triple its market size from $5.8 billion to $13 billion by 2033.
Wow, triple.
Yeah, it's becoming a really critical hub. And India is right there, too, showing very similar impressive growth. Think about its growing scientific base, the talent pool, and, of course, the cost advantages.
Right.
And interestingly, the report notes that the rest of APAC category, it actually shows the highest CAGR in the entire report.
Really? Higher than China or India's individual rates?
At 7.299%, yes. So it suggests really broad, rapid development happening across many other countries in the region, too.
Okay, so Asia Pacific is clearly booming. But what about the, let's say, more established markets, like North America? How are they fitting into this picture?
Still very significant.
Yeah, the report shows steady progress there. It's projected to grow from around $10.6 billion in 2021.
$10.597 billion.
To almost $20 billion by 2033. That's a solid CAGR of 5.543%.
Indeed. North America is still a huge contributor. The U.S. predictably holds the lion's share.
Makes sense.
Its market was $8.357 billion in 2021, set to rise to $15.58 billion by 2033. That's driven by, its massive research infrastructure, the established industry. They tend to focus on the high-value, complex services. Canada also shows solid growth, from $1.4 billion to nearly $2.8 billion. And Mexico, too, growing from $1.837 billion to $1.639 billion. So yeah, steady progress overall. It's mature, but still evolving, specializing in those cutting-edge areas needing external support.
And Europe, also a key player, I assume.
Absolutely, another really important region.
The report puts Europe at over $9 billion in 2021.
$9.181 billion.
And forecasting nearly $17.8 billion by 2033. The DTR there is 5.839%. slightly higher than North America's.
That's right. And we see strong contributions from countries like the UK. It's set to basically double from about $1.07 billion to $2.15 billion.
Okay.
Germany is also significant, projected to hit $3.165 billion by 2033, with a pretty healthy CGRR of 6.294%.
Interesting.
Spain's growing steadily too, around 5.6%. And similar to APAC, the rest of Europe category actually shows the fastest expansion within the continent at 6.887%. So again, growth isn't just in the biggest economies.
Right, that seems to be a theme. Okay, so we've covered the major hubs, but here's where it can get really interesting. The emerging markets. Let's touch on those growth paths. South America, Middle East, Africa.
Yeah, definitely worth looking at. South America, for instance, is projected to grow quite a bit, from $2.346 billion in 2021 to $5.628 billion by 2033.
That's more than double.
It is a KGR of 6.214%, and Brazil makes up a big chunk of that, going from $0.8 billion to over $2 billion. It shows, a growing appetite for outsourcing as their own biopharma sectors develop.
Okay, and the Middle East.
Also expanding, moving from $2.3 billion in 2021 to about $4.24 billion by 2033. The CAGR is a bit lower, 4.81%.
Mm-hmm.
Saudi Arabia shows notable growth within that $0.915 billion, rising to $1.7 billion. It sort of aligns with their wider economic diversification plans. The rest of the Middle East has a more moderate growth rate, around 4.2%.
And Africa, starting from a smaller base, I imagine.
Yes, $1.254 billion in 2021, but projected to double to $2.529 billion by 2033. That's a CAGR of 5.195%.
Still solid growth.
It is. Nigeria contributes, growing from $0.31 billion to $0.64 billion. And South Africa is set to cross the $1 billion mark by 2033. It highlights Africa's increasing role, particularly in, say, global clinical trials and accessing diverse patient groups.
Okay, so we've seen numbers from all across the globe. If you had to kind of tie it all together,
Yeah.
what's the main story here? What are the big takeaways?
Well, if we connect all these dots, the big picture is one of really robust, sustained, and widespread expansion for biopharma outsourcing.
Right.
The core drivers, they seem pretty consistent everywhere. It's the increasing complexity of R&D,
Yeah.
the constant cost pressures facing pharma companies, and just the need to access highly specialized skills and tech that's often, frankly, too expensive or complex to build internally.
Makes sense.
And regionally, yeah, Asia-Pacific, particularly China and India, is clearly emerging as a major powerhouse driving a lot of the new growth.
While the established players keep growing too.
Exactly. North America and Europe maintain that steady progress, leveraging their, existing infrastructure and focusing often on those high-end specialized services. It's really a strategic evolution happening on a global scale.
It really is. And what a deep dive this has been. I think the key takeaway for you, our listener, is that this global market for biotechnology and pharmaceutical services outsourcing, it's not just growing. It's undergoing this fundamental strategic shift. It's changing how pharmaceutical and biotech innovation actually happens, how it's developed, how it gets to market. It's really reshaping the whole industry.
Absolutely. And maybe this raises an important question for you to think about beyond just the numbers we discussed.
Well,
Given this huge global move towards more outsourcing, what fundamental changes might this bring to the actual internal structures, the strategic priorities of the big biopharma companies themselves?
good question.
And maybe how might it impact the nature, the speed, perhaps even the focus of innovation in drug discovery down the road? Definitely something to ponder.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're really digging into the biotechnology and pharmaceutical services outsourcing market.
A really dynamic space right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Our mission is basically to unpack how this sector has evolved strategically. We want to look at the key drivers, and also the challenges and maybe peek into the future trends.
Exactly. And we're drawing on some solid recent market research to ground this.
Good. So you might think, okay, outsourcing, it's about saving money. But in biopharma, well, it seems it's become something much, much more fundamental than that.
It really has. And what's fascinating is how quickly that view changed. I mean, yes, initially outsourcing was seen mainly as a way to cut costs, trim the budget.
The standard approach.
Right, but now it's fundamentally a strategic imperative. You've got this huge surge in R&D spending across the industry.
Yeah, you see those numbers everywhere.
But at the same time, there's this intense pressure to actually reduce overall operational costs. It's a bit of a paradox.
So how do they square that circle?
Well, that's where outsourcing comes in strategically. Companies are leaning much more heavily on CROs, contract research organizations, and CDMOs, the contract development and manufacturing organizations.
Oh,
These partners bring specialized skills, equipment, infrastructure, stuff that's just incredibly expensive and, frankly, time-consuming for one company to build and keep up to date in-house.
right. You can't be expert in everything.
Precisely. And the result, it really speeds up the drug development cycle. It helps bypass a lot of those common bottlenecks that, can stall progress.
So it makes companies faster, more agile.
Exactly. More competitive, which is
Mhm.
critical in a field that moves this fast, driven by innovation and time-to-market pressures.
Okay, so that shift from just saving cash to gaining a real competitive edge, that's key. But let's dig into the complexity a bit. How are companies using outsourcing to handle just how, well, complicated modern drug development has become?
Yeah, and it has become incredibly complex. Take clinical trials, for instance. They're not just local anymore. They're global, multi-center, and the regulations, they're intense.
Getting tighter all the time, it seems.
Absolutely. So outsourcing partners are, well, they're often essential now. They help manage patient recruitment across different countries. They navigate that complex maze of regulatory paperwork for submissions in various regions.
Like the FDA, EMA,
Yeah,
all those different bodies.
exactly. And critically, they ensure compliance with global standards like ICH GCP.
ICH-GCP.
Ah, sorry. Good clinical practice. It's the International Ethical and Scientific Quality Standard for trials. Super important.
Got it. So compliance is a big piece.
Huge. And getting it right with a partner speeds up approvals, speeds up market access. It's vital.
And does it allow the drug companies themselves to kind of focus their efforts?
That's the other major strategic angle.
Yeah.
Yes, by outsourcing functions that aren't, let's say, their absolute core, things like toxicology studies, maybe formulation development, pharmacovigilance, which is ongoing drug safety monitoring.
Mm-hmm.
By outsourcing those, the organizations can really pour their internal resources, their best people, into their core strengths, drug discovery, innovative research, designing the next breakthrough.
Sharpening the focus.
Precisely. And the
Yeah.
payoff is faster timelines to get drugs to market and just being more nimble, more able to react quickly to new scientific opportunities. That agility is a massive advantage today.
Okay, so the strategic benefits are pretty clear: speed, focus, navigating complexity. But, growth like this, shifts this big, they always come with bumps in the road. What are the main challenges or hurdles companies face when outsourcing these really critical functions?
Yeah, you're right. It's definitely not without its challenges. A really big one, a persistent concern, is data security and protecting intellectual property.
Ah, okay. Makes sense.
Think about it. You're sharing highly confidential research data, maybe sensitive drug formulations, with outside partners, sometimes partners across borders.
That sounds risky.
It introduces inherent risks, yes. Risks of data breaches or even misuse of that valuable IP. So companies are really tightening up their compliance protocols, their contracts, putting much more rigorous oversight in place to safeguard their innovations.
These controls are getting stricter. What else?
Another challenge, and this can really mess up timelines, is service quality variability.
Ning.
Well, you might find big differences in capabilities between vendors, or you run into unexpected delays, communication breakdowns, things that disrupt the workflow.
Which could impact trial results. Or even the final product.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
It really underscores how critical, absolutely critical, careful partner selection and ongoing process management are. You need consistency.
Right. Due diligence is key.
Absolutely.
Right.
And then there's the complexity around regulations, particularly in emerging markets.
Ah, interesting. Why there specifically?
Well, these regions can offer significant cost advantages, which is attractive, but sometimes the regulatory frameworks aren't as developed or consistently enforced as, say, in the US or Europe.
Okay, I see.
This can lead to compliance gaps, unexpected hurdles, and ultimately delays in getting approvals in those regions, or even globally if data from those regions is questioned.
That's a really interesting point, balancing the cost benefits against those very real risks, especially in newer markets. How are companies managing that specific balancing act? Are they just like accepting more risk, or are there smarter strategies emerging?
That's a great question. And no, they're definitely not just accepting the risks. Smarter strategies are absolutely emerging. What we're seeing, according to the research, is a real push towards setting up Joint governance committees with the outsourcing partners.
So more collaboration.
Deeper collaboration, yes. And even things like embedding their own dedicated staff within the partner's operations, especially in those higher risk regions. It's about building much tighter oversight.
Boots on the ground, essentially.
Kind of, yeah. It's about creating a governance framework that's robust enough to bridge potential regulatory gaps and making sure that local expertise is properly integrated and managed. It's proactive risk mitigation.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so we've talked about the shift, the complexity, the challenges, the risk mitigation. Where is this all heading? What does the future look like for biopharma outsourcing? What's next?
Well, looking ahead, there are some really transformative trends taking shape. One of the biggest is a move towards integrated and full service outsourcing models.
Meaning fewer, bigger partners?
Essentially, yes. Companies are moving away from managing, lots of different vendors for different stages, one for discovery chemistry, another for tox studies, another for manufacturing.
The fragmented approach.
Right. Instead, they're looking to build long-term strategic partnerships with single providers. Providers who can offer end-to-end solutions, from the earliest discovery work right through to commercial scale manufacturing.
Wow, like a one-stop shop.
Exactly. And what's really interesting here is this shift towards deeper, more holistic partnerships. The idea is that this improves workflow continuity, makes communication way smoother, and cuts down on all that friction you get when handing projects off between different vendors.
Saves time, saves resources, presumably.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
Big time savings, fewer errors.
Okay, but does that create a different kind of risk? Like, what about vendor lock-in? Or what if that one big partner isn't actually the best at every single thing they offer? Doesn't that reduce flexibility?
That's a very sharp point. And yes, it's a legitimate concern that companies are definitely aware of. The research highlights that the due diligence process for selecting these big full-service partners has become incredibly rigorous.
They have to be really careful who they choose.
Extremely careful. They're looking for providers who can demonstrate consistent excellence across the entire range of services, not just in one or two areas. And honestly, this is pushing the CROs and CDMOs themselves to evolve, to really broaden and deepen their own capabilities at, frankly, an amazing speed.
Interesting. So it drives improvement on the provider side, too.
Absolutely. Which connects to another key trend: the huge surge in demand for outsourcing in specific high-growth areas. Think biologics, biosimilars, and especially cell and gene therapies.
The really complex cutting-edge stuff.
Exactly. These therapies require incredibly advanced capabilities. Things like specialized bioanalytical testing, manufacturing processes for personalized medicines, capabilities that are really difficult and expensive for most companies to handle entirely in-house.
So the outsourcing partners are stepping up there.
They are. CROs and CDMOs are rapidly expanding their services to meet these very sophisticated needs. It really reflects where the R&D focus is shifting towards precision medicine.
Okay, precision medicine driving outsourcing needs. Makes sense. What else?
And the final big one, maybe the biggest disruptor of all, is the digital revolution hitting outsourcing.
Ah, AI and technology.
Yes, we're seeing deep integration of artificial intelligence, machine learning, cloud-based platforms, all being woven directly into outsourcing workflows.
How does that actually play out?
Well, for example, AI can enhance data analysis from trials, find patterns humans might miss. Machine learning can help optimize clinical trial design itself, maybe predicting patient recruitment bottlenecks more accurately, or identifying the best sites.
Yeah.
Cloud platforms allow for better data sharing and collaboration. And you even have tech enabling real-time patient monitoring in decentralized trials. Trials run partly outside traditional clinics.
So technology isn't just supporting the process, it's changing it.
Fundamentally changing it. It's driving operational efficiency, it's improving data accuracy, and it's allowing for faster, smarter decision-making all the way through the development pipeline. It's a massive accelerator.
So we've definitely covered a lot of ground today. It's clear that biopharma outsourcing has moved far beyond just cutting costs. It's really become this core strategic tool, hasn't it? Driven by the need for innovation, efficiency, and dealing with that global complexity.
Absolutely. And while the opportunities are immense, it really underscores that success hinges on, well, several critical things.
Okay.
Very careful partner selection, having that foresight about complex regulations, especially globally, and maintaining incredibly robust data security and governance. Those are non-negotiable.
Right. Okay, so let's leave our listeners with something to think about. Considering this rapid evolution, we've discussed the shift of strategic partnerships, the rise of full-service models, the deep integration of AI and other tech. How might the traditional idea of an in-house R&D department fundamentally change over the next, say, 10 years? And maybe more importantly, what kind of new skills or even new career opportunities might pop up in this increasingly specialized outsourced landscape?